Gopijanavalabha Girivaradari Jaya. Jaya Gopijanavalabha Girivaradari Jaya. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Ist es an? Haribo, Haribo? Ja, ne? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. English, huh? Everybody speaks English? Yes. Du übersetzt für Purusha Simha? Kannst du? Brauchst du Übersetzung Purusha Simha oder? Sonst ist Sanjay auch da, der ist auch ein absoluter, erfahrener Bhagavatam-Übersetzer. So, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 11. Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj, text 27. 27? 28 already. 28. So I'll do first word by word. Yaham Pancha Varsho Jananim Tvam Vihayam Matuhu Sapatnyam Vachasa Bhinna Marmam Vanam Gatas Tapasa Pratyak Aksham Arhadhyam Lebhe Murdni Padam Trilokyaham Ya Panchavarsho Jayanim Tvam Vihaya Ya Panchavarsho Jayanim Tvam Vihaya Matu Sapatnya Vachasa Binamarmam Matu Sapatnya Vachasa Bhinamarmyam Vanam Gatastapasa Pratyakaksham Vanam Gatastapasa Pratyakaksham Aradhyale Vimurnipadam Trilokyaham Aradhyale Vimurnipadam Trilokyaham Ya Panchavarsho Jayanim Tvam Vihaya Matu Sapatnya Vachasa Bhinamarma Vanam Gatastapasa Pratyakaksham Aradhyale Vimurnipadam Trilokyaham Please repeat. Ladies. Ya Panchavarsha Jajanim Tvam Vihaya Vachasavinamarma Vanam Gatastapasa Pratyakaksham Aradhyale Vimurnipadam Trilokyaham Ya Panchavarsha Jajanim Tvam Vihaya Matu Sapatnya Vachasa Bhinamarma Vanam Gatastapasa Pratyakaksham Aradhyale Vimurnipadam Trilokyaham very much. So, word by word. Yaham, one who. Panchavarshaham, 5 years old. Jananim, mother. Tvam, you. Vihaya, leaving aside. Matuhu, of the mother. Sapatnyaha, of the co-wife. Vachasa, by the words. Bhinnamarma, aggrieved at the heart. Vanam, to the forest. Gataha, went. Tapasam, by austerity. Pratyaksham, the Supreme Lord. Aradhya, worshipping. Lebhe, achieved. Murdni, on the top. Padam, the position. Trilokyaha, of the three worlds. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Dhruva, at the age of only 5 years, you were very grievously afflicted by the words of your mother's co-wife, and you very boldly gave up the protection of your mother and went to the forest to engage in the yogic process for realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a result of this, you have already achieved the topmost position in all the three worlds. Purport. Manu was very proud that Dhruva Maharaj was one of the descendants of his family, because at the age of only 5 years, Dhruva began meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and within 6 months he was able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. Factually, Dhruva Maharaj is the glory of the Manu dynasty, or the human family. The human family begins from Manu. The Sanskrit word for man, is Manushya, which means descendant of Manu. Not only is Dhruva Maharaj the glory of the family of Swayambhuva Manu, but he is the glory of the entire human society. Because Dhruva Maharaj had already surrendered to the Supreme Godhead, he was specially requested not to do anything unbefitting a surrendered soul. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padam Vajo Radhamadana Mohanao Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadru Mada Srimad Radnangara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govindadeva Uprashtalivi Savimana Usmarami Srimandra Sarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatastitaha Karsham Veno Svanai Gopir Gopinata Shriyesunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Ramo Hare Hare. So once again the verse. Ya panchavarsho jajanim tvayam vihaya matu sapatnya vachasa bhina marma vanam gatasta pasapratyak aksham Aradhyalheve Murnipadam Trilokyaham. My dear Dhruva, at the age of only 5 years, you were very grievously afflicted by the words of your mother's co-wife, and you very boldly gave up the protection of your mother and went to the forest to engage in the yogic process for realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a result of this, you have already achieved the topmost position in the three worlds. Hare Krishna. So, this is like a short summary of the story. When we hear the chapter of, or the chapters on Dhruva Maharaj, we have to hear the story again and again, so you don't forget what the story was. Yeah, so we of course know that the whole Genesis, but it can be repeated again and again because it's so glorious and so endearing when such a young child shows this kind of, resolution and character. So we actually hear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two of the most favorite sections of the Bhagavatam he liked to hear were the story of Dhruva Maharaj and the story of Prahlad. And they're both, of course, young children, the age of 5, 6 years old, who are showing an extreme level of spiritual maturity. And this is very, very glorious, very endearing, very inspiring also. If a small child can do it, maybe we also can do it. So there's also some inspiration and hope there. And it's also interesting that, of course, the motivation for Dhruva Maharaj was initially not necessarily pure. His motivation was actually out of anger. He felt offended. He felt hurt, and that was his initial motivation. Was actually vengeance. So even the initial motivation was vengeance, still he achieved the supreme position. So this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, where we hear about the 4 types of people who usually turn to Krishna. Probably you could fit everybody into these 4 categories. Either you are suffering, so Dhruva Maharaj was certainly suffering, or you are in a position where you are you lack wealth, so you're hoping for some money, so you pray to God or you seek help. Like in India, this is one of the main tactics of the Christians to convert people. They promise them money or rice or something, and then as soon as they convert, then they get less or nothing. So that can always be a motivation. You turn to God or spirituality or religion, trying to improve your material, situation. And then there is curiosity. People who are just curious. I want to see what they're doing. And once you saw it, you did everything. You took part in all the different parts of the temple. You tried chanting. You read the Bhagavad Gita, and you're like, okay, seen, done it. Okay, next. You also will see people like that. And then finally is the person who actually is looking for knowledge. And Krishna says that out of those 4 people, 3 have an ulterior motivation, and unless this motivation is purified, eventually they will give up the process of devotional service, or altogether spirituality. So, if the motivation was only to improve, to get out of suffering, you also will see people like that very often. Especially in the beginning of the movement, so many people who were very addicted, to all kinds of really heavy substances. There's a few examples of devotees who were literally, lying on the street, rotting, and they became devotees, And some of them became great devotees, and some of them, as soon as they felt better, they felt strength again, then the old desires came back, and then they went back out to try again their luck. So that's very common, that as when the motivation is not purified or elevated, the tendency will be to become, how you say, rückfällig. Wie sagt man es auf Deutsch, auf Englisch? Rückfällig. To have a relapse. Yeah, relapse is the right word. So you get a relapse again, and again. So That's the interesting point, that Dhruva Maharaj, even his motivation in the beginning was very, out of anger and not pure at all. He just wanted vengeance. He wanted to have a greater kingdom than Manu, who's talking to him now, or even Brahma. He just wanted to really show off. That was his motivation. I want to show off to my father, I have a bigger kingdom than you. I don't need to sit on your lap, on your throne. My throne is bigger than yours. That was kind of like his basic idea. So even his motivation was vengeance. He focused so explicitly on the instructions of his spiritual master, Narada Muni, and the process that he received and the austerity, that he got purified. He was purified. So by the end of the 6 months, when he got the darshan of the Lord, he was pure. He, like Man was saying, he achieved the topmost position in the three worlds, seeing the Lord face to face. So, of course, it's easier said than done, within 6 months. Maybe in the first 6 months of Krishna consciousness, many people think, I can do it in 6 months. I'm almost there. I'm almost a pure devotee. And then after 6 months, you start becoming more introspective, and then you realize, okay, Anartha Nivritti is still a long, long desert to cross. Like once I saw a movie from prisoners who were in Siberia. They were in Siberia, and they escaped this prison, and they were trying to, find rescue. So they had to cross the Gobi Desert. So it's one of the most hostile deserts in the world. It's cold and dry and hot, and on the other side were the Himalaya mountains, and then was India, which was nice, So it's similar like that. Anartha Nivritti is sometimes described as an endless plain. You can't see the other side. Where's the end of Anartha Nivritti? But of course, it is easier if you are in company. If you're alone, it's really tough. Probably you won't survive. So also in this movie, there were a whole group of people, so they somehow managed, to cross the desert. Once we cross the desert, then it becomes very easy. But this desert needs to be crossed. And this desert sometimes is also, of course, compared to an ocean. The ocean of material existence, because it's basically the same. The anarthas. Artha means something valuable, money basically, or wealth. And anartha is something which is not valuable. It's not elevating you. You're not getting more or richer or wealthier. You're degrading yourself. So that's an anartha. And anarthas are unwanted, not necessary, not good for you. And of course, all of material existence, has this quality. The more you engage with it, you become more entangled, and it's degrading you more and more. If you don't make a disciplined effort to elevate yourself, by default, you will degrade yourself. So it's necessary to do an effort, to wake up, to clean yourself, to take a shower, to basic things. If you don't do anything, after a short while, you look sick, and you will become, morose, unhappy, So the ocean of material existence is also a very common analogy, So either a desert or an ocean, and both are basically the same, actually. An ocean might seem like maybe nicer, because it's wet, but plenty of stories of people who are in the middle of the ocean, and they drink the water, and it actually is worse than not drinking. So it's also a desert, the ocean of material existence. And there is this very beautiful, encouraging analogy that in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam it's described that this ocean is, insurmountable. It's so huge, And also, of course, there are all kinds of very elaborate descriptions, all the different entities that you will find in this ocean, crocodiles and sharks and whatnot, and they all represent different, deviant philosophies and ideas and ideologies, that might deviate you or devour you. But there is a boat, there is a boat we can take to cross this ocean. And this ocean, this boat is called Nitai Padakamala. In Brazil, we used to have a farm in the Amazon jungle, New Jarikanda, and Somaka Maharaj had a big boat, and the boat was named Nitai Padakamala. So the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda. And that's what is described. So there, the boats that we can take to cross this ocean are the lotus feet of the Lord. These are the vessels. You take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then we can cross that ocean. And then the question is, what are the timings for the boat leaving? Like I was once on the way to this farm in the jungle in Amazon, in Brazil. We had to go from Peru, the whole Amazon, 7 days through the Amazon, and we came to this port in Iquitos in the jungle, and it was like Ben-Hur. You know the movie Ben-Hur? Somebody knows? It's a very old movie. In Peru, they used to show it every year during Christmas season. But Ben-Hur is a very epic, ancient, like a movie of, the slaves in Roman times, Jewish times, and is related to the Old Testament. In any case, like this port was like that, It was like a horror movie, basically. Like people covered in mud, crawling up the banks, carrying bananas and fruits and, smoking huge metal vessels, And so we came to the port, and then we turned around and said, okay, let's wait 1 more week before we take that boat, So we were not so sure to take the boat. So it always takes some courage to take a boat, And you also need to know the timing. So what are the timings, for the boat? When is it leaving again? Okay, it's leaving in 1 week again. Okay, let's wait 1 week more. So what are the timings for the boat? The lotus feet of Krishna. What are the timings? And Srila Prabhupada explains that there is no timings. There is no timings. The boats are always available because they never leave. Like what? The boats never move, The boats are always anchored. They never leave. They always stay there. And why? Because the moment you take shelter of that boat, that gigantic ocean of the material existence shrinks to the size of the imprint of a hoof, of a calf. So the boats never leave. There's no need for the boat to go anywhere to cross, such a small pond. And this gives a context of how insignificant actually material existence is in comparison to spiritual reality. So spiritual reality might seem very far away, might seem something very vague. For somebody who has little faith, it's like, is it even real? Or is it just a cultural phenomena that people believe in God, believe in I don't know, eternity? But the moment you experience it, you realize this is reality. Actually, this is reality, and this material existence we are experiencing is actually just a shadow. It's just a shadow. It's just a reflection, and it's no comparison. Another interesting, you could say, comparison or context that Radha Govinda Prabhu always loved to give this, tell this sequence, and he gave 2 main examples. One example was that there is a big feast, Janmastami, Gaur Purnima, big feast, big feast, 108 preparations and more. I think at Chaturdasi, I think we had 150 preparations maybe. And then somebody comes running in, I have a potato, who wants a potato, raw potato, Everybody's like, what? What do you, why? So, yeah, so that's the comparison, that the spiritual reality is, it's amazing. But if you don't know anything else, maybe this guy was starving, And he finally got a potato. So he's like, I have a potato, let's cook it. Singare Bhagavan ki jai. So for him, that's, amazing, But it's all relative, So if you compare it with that feast, forget about the potato. The feast is ready. The feast is served. So in a similar way, the spiritual reality is incomparable. We cannot imagine really, how amazing, the spiritual reality is. We can only get, a glimpse, and the more you get a glimpse, the more it becomes easy to transcend material reality. So the other comparison that is given in the Shastras, and Radha Govinda always told it very lively. So it is said that the highest, if you take as a unit of pleasure somebody who is ruling the entire world, this planet, he's ruling the entire world. He's young, he's popular, he's intelligent, and he's good looking, So that's good, You're ruling the whole world, you're doing your job right, everybody likes you, you feel probably fulfilled, you're like, cool. So that pleasure, the residents of Svarga Loka, they experience just by touching each other. And in Svarga Loka, of course, we have Indra himself. So Indra is the ruler, of all the devatas. And he experiences, of course, a lot of pleasure. He has a lot of, amenities and control power. But the level of pleasure that he experiences in Brahma Loka, people experience just by looking at each other. Just by looking at each other, same pleasure as all of the experience of Indra himself. And then, of course, we have Brahma himself, who is the ruler of the entire universe. And his pleasure in comparison to Brahmananda. Brahmananda means when you realize, Jadananda is material happiness, Jadananda. So the highest form of Jadananda would be Brahma's, Brahma is within the material world, and he's super intelligent, sattvic, has it all under control, he has 4 heads, Sometimes he gets also bewildered, but generally he's pretty happy, So is Jadananda. Brahmananda, to be free of any material desires, is even better. So it says that, the happiness of Brahma is like a small speck in comparison to the ocean of Brahmananda. And then beyond Brahmananda, we have Premananda. So in relationship to Krishna, prema, loving relationship with Krishna, then again, this Brahmananda shrinks, to like a small drop in comparison to the ocean of Premananda. So this is to give us some context, and we are here with our raw potato. Have a raw potato, and we are very amazed, at our raw potato. The more we hear, we can experience actually. And the reason is because the ear and the ability to hear is very powerful. Actually, the ear is the most subtle amongst the senses, because Shabda, the element of sound, is also not related to what do you call it? Akash, space, ether. So ether is the most subtle of the elements. And so is sound, and so is the organ of sounds, the ear. You can't hear with your nose, and so on. But with the ear, you can just hear a story, or a description of foods, and you start smelling it, tasting it, So the ear is very potent, You can literally access the subtle realm. You can also access emotions, Like you hear a song with a certain melody, it reminds you, it makes you maybe, melancholic, or happy, or angry, So sound is very, very powerful. So by hearing, the more we hear about Krishna, the more we will have an experience, of the real, the real world, and that's why Srila Prabhupada puts regularly, always, so much emphasis on Krishna Katha. And it's very interesting because if you've been a little bit in association with Gaudiya Math, and they always talk about Hari Katha, Hari Katha. But Srila Prabhupada used to say Krishna Katha, not Hari Katha, Krishna Katha, directly. Because Hari could be any form of Vishnu, which is of course also nice. The whole Bhagavatam is Hari Katha, talking about all the incarnations and different avatars. But Srila Prabhupada never used the word Hari Katha. He always talked about Krishna Katha versus Prajalpa. Or Gramya Katha also is another word. Gramya Katha is village talk, gossiping, or social media, YouTube. Of course, there are also devotees on YouTube. But yes, so this is our challenge. What kind of katha do we hear? And even we have like this amazing, you could say, instruction from Srila Prabhupada, again and again about Krishna Katha. Sometimes we forget the value of Krishna Katha. Let's say like this, like we mention the word Krishna Katha less often than Gaudiya Math people mention the word Hari Katha, I've noticed. The Gaudiya Math would always talk about Hari Katha. Let's do some Hari Katha, Hari Katha. So we should also do more Krishna Katha. The more we like consciously engage in Krishna Katha, talking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, we can and we will experience spiritual reality. So yes, this is the key. And then Srila Prabhupada is talking here in the purport about Manu, how Manu is very proud of Dhruva Maharaj, and because he is in his dynasty, basically, I think Uttanapada was the son of, so Manu was really the grandfather, basically, of Dhruva Maharaj, So Manu is the grandfather of, so he's like teaching his grandchild, don't behave like this. Because the reason why Manu intervened, as you probably know, is that Dhruva Maharaj had an outfit of anger, a real outfit of anger. In the Singha office, we have the picture, in the Singha, Dhruva Maharaj fighting against the illusion of the Yakshas. And in the beginning, it was kind of a fair fight, you could say, but Dhruva was very powerful, and he himself single-handedly, first he was like almost overcome, by the powerful, illusory attacks of the Yakshas, but then he took shelter of the Narayan Kavacha, the holy name of the Lord, and he was able to overcome all the illusory attacks of the Yakshas, and then he was his turn to attack, and he really went on an attack, in modern language, probably he was the slayer, he was just slaying everything, and everybody would move, and it became so extreme that Brahma himself and Manu intervened and said, "Okay, enough." And what's the name of Mataji? Nitai Sevika Mataji, Sevini, Nitai Sevini Mataji, who was here. She was talking about this very interesting topic, anger, how to deal with anger, and different examples of anger, and when anger is appropriate, and when it's not appropriate, how to deal with it. Because obviously, even somebody who was so advanced as Dhruva Maharaj, he was still, overcome by anger. So anger is very powerful, and we hear, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita why it is so powerful, because anger removes or clouds or suppresses discrimination and intelligence, It's a very powerful emotion that just takes over, and if you act upon it, it's very likely that once you come out of anger, you will repent it, straight away usually, You say something very harsh, and very hurting, and then, the anger is out, released, anger released, and then you repent it, And if you have a strong false ego, you try to pretend that you don't repent. But in reality, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? So that's anger. So if you're humble, you might ask for forgiveness straight away. But anger is very, very powerful. And Nitai Sivini Mataji said gave a few examples of when anger was justified. And one example was, she said it in one sentence, and of course without context, somebody might misunderstand. She said, Hanuman burned Lanka. That was good anger, And the Sri Lankas will be like, what? Why is it good to burn our island? But of course, if you know the story, it makes sense. And in the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada also talks extensively about it, because there is the first verse of the Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami is Vachovegam Manasakroda Vegam. So we have to control our speech, Vachovegam Manasakroda Vegam. And then we have to control the urges of speech, the urges of the mind, and the urges of anger. These are the first three that Rupa Goswami mentions. And Srila Prabhupada goes into a very long explanation, exactly about this topic. That anger is there, Nrsingadev, is known as, Ugra Nrsinga, really angry, and his anger was absolutely justified, like super, like extreme anger, but at the perfect time, perfect moment, for the right purpose, directed to the right person, to protect, Prahlad Maharaj, and annihilating the demon who deserved, heavy, punishment, You could also say like what do you call it in English? Grässlich. Wie sagt man grässlich? Gruesome, yeah. A gruesome, kill. He didn't just kill him, he ripped him apart, and took out his intestines, put them around his neck, and screaming all the while. Imagine. It's like seldom you will see such display of anger. It's like absolute rage. But it's beautiful and glorious if you know the context. So Hiranyakashipu certainly deserved it. If he was willing to kill his own child, multiple times. So Nrsimhadev had enough. And then there's also, of course, examples of other sages or rishis, like, for example, Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni is not directly Shiva, but he's kind of like an incarnation of Shiva or empowered by Shiva. And he has a little bit this mood of Shiva. He is very easily pleased, but if you do one wrong move, he also might be very easily displeased, And the Puranas are full of stories of Durvasa Muni, And he's so well known, like even in the Mahabharata, there's this famous story of Duryodhana receiving Durvasa Muni, and Duryodhana making sure he gets everything he needs and taking care of all his disciples, and so Durvasa Muni is very happy, and he asked Duryodhana, so what do you want? Any boon I can grant you? And Duryodhana, oh no, I'm completely fine, but please go visit my cousins in the forest. That's the only desire I have. And because he knew, his cousins in the forest, the 5 Pandavas, they didn't have the ability, to cater for 60,000, disciples plus Durvasa Muni. Because Duryodhana also mentioned the specific time he should go there. So he knew after that time, they will have finished their meal, and Draupadi had this famous Akshaya Patra. So Akshaya Patra means an inexhaustible pot. So she would cook a meal in that pot, and she could serve out of this pot, unlimited amounts. Especially Bhima, it was very practical to have such an Akshaya Patra because it said that Kunti Devi used to cook one pot for Bhima and one pot for the family. So, but the moment Draupadi would eat, then the pot was exhausted until the next day. So Duryodhana made sure Durvasa Muni came right after Draupadi had already eaten. So Durvasa Muni comes, and he's welcomed, and already everybody's nervous. Durvasa Muni is here. His reputation is well known. He very easily, gives out curses. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is very diplomatic and says, please, go take a bath. We'll arrange everything while you're gone. to get some time, So then Durvasa Muni with disciples go to the river to take a bath, and in the meantime they have like a, crisis meeting. What do? We have no food. Draupadi has already eaten. What do we do now? If they come back, we have no food prepared. It's like we will be cursed. We're done. We're doomed. Durvasa Muni will become super angry. So they were in such a frantic, and then Krishna appeared, and took the last morsel which was in the pot, and by him being satisfied, automatically, everybody was satisfied, including or especially the 60,000 disciples of Durvasa Muni. So then they were like, oh my God, what do we do now? We're so full that we can eat like not even a single nothing, And then Durvasa Muni decided to flee with his disciples. Like, if we go back, we can't honor the hospitality of Yudhishthira Maharaj. We will be in trouble, So let's better go, So Durvasa Muni and his disciples, they just go. So it was a narrow escape, with the help of Krishna. But another example, of course, famous in the Bhagavatam is Durvasa Muni coming to visit Ambarish Maharaj. So Ambarish Maharaj was on a fast, and his fast had not yet ended. And Durvasa Muni was expecting him to serve him and honor food with him. So Ambarish Maharaj didn't know what to do. So then again Durvasa Muni went to take a bath, and before he came back, he took a little bit longer. So the time where he had to end his fast was approaching. So Ambarish Maharaj asked his ministers and advisors and brahmanas, what do I do? If I don't break my fast now, then the whole fast was for nothing. Then the vrata is not fulfilled. But if I eat before my guest comes, is also not polite. What do I do now? So then his advisors told him, just drink water. Drinking water is like breaking a fast because you took something, but because it's only water, it can be considered that you actually did not really eat. So it's a good solution. You just drink some water, and then when Durvasa Muni comes, you serve him, then you eat, proper food. So that's what Ambarish Maharaj did. Durvasa Muni came back, and with his mystic powers, he already knew, and he was super angry. You broke the fast, You ate before me, So that's Durvasa Muni, for you, He was very angry that Ambarish Maharaj was not following the etiquette properly. So not much consideration for or empathy for the situation, he was in, the dilemma he was in. He was just angry that he had eaten or drunk before him. So he became super angry, and was ready to. He manifested, I forgot the name, but kind of like a big, powerful, demon, to attack Ambarish Maharaj, And Sudarshana straight away came, and killed the demon, and then started persecuting Durvasa himself. So I forgot the other examples that Mataji gave, but the point is that being advanced, or being in a exalted position, being a rishi or a yogi or even a devotee, would not necessarily, not necessarily will be immediately free of anger. It's still a very powerful and dangerous force to be conscious of. So there's one example. This was one point that I also thought was very important. Mataji mentioned how anger poisons our body, And she gave the crass example of a mother who was very, very angry after a fight with her husband and then breastfed the child, and the child died. And another famous experiment that was well known is that when somebody is really in rage, you can take the breath, you can accumulate that humidity, and when somebody is really angry, you take that breath, and there's enough poison to kill a rabbit, just in the breath of somebody who was angry. So it's really poison. But anger can be controlled. And Srila Prabhupada, a few times, there's plenty of devotees, if you read diaries of Harisori Prabhu or other anecdotes of different Prabhupada disciples, Prabhupada became angry. At times, he became really, really, really angry. And one example that was very famous, I forgot where and who, but the situation was Prabhupada was in a room, in his room with many devotees and some guests, and he was having a very pleasant talk and explaining Krishna consciousness and preaching, and then suddenly one devotee walked in, and I forgot who it was and for what reason exactly, but Prabhupada, he did something really wrong. He did something bad. He did a bad decision, bad judgment. So Srila Prabhupada started blasting him straight away. He came into the room, and Prabhupada was, the description Harishori was giving is that, his lips became blue, and, became like wavy, and he was like, really like screaming at the top of his voice, at this devotee, chastising him. This devotee was like immediately, taking shelter, asking for forgiveness, and, left the room to correct, himself. And then Prabhupada continued talking pleasantly to everybody else. So he was in full control of his anger, because like the typical, you could say, situation when somebody expresses anger and releases anger is that you are exhausted. You're exhausted, your body temperature also rises, the face of your color usually changes, you become more red, and and then you're literally poisoned, exhausted. You're like, and you're not really. This is also a very important point Nitai Sivini Mataji made, is that when you are angry, it's not like eating food, So when you're hungry, you eat and then you're like, okay, nice. When you're angry and you just let it out, usually it becomes worse. You feel morose. You feel, it's not a solution. You don't feel good afterwards. But if the anger is justified, you might be in the control of it, and it will not really affect you the same way. So Srila Prabhupada, a few times, there's many examples, Srila Prabhupada used this anger very consciously to chastise or direct his disciples. And that's also, the duty of a parent or teacher. Sometimes you might be very persistent, to your child. No, don't jump off the cliff. Don't jump off the cliff. Okay, I don't want to jump. So, because small children have no fear, like, oh, that looks nice down there. So you have to be, but of course a parent using anger like that, becoming angry and loud, he will not be like feeling like heavy, or maybe still you might feel, if you're like, oh my God, did I scream too loud, Did I traumatize my child? Like even Yashoda Maharaj in the Damodar Leela is described that she persecuted Krishna with a stick, She was angry, He had, broken the pots and, stole the butter and everything. So she was really angry, persecuting Krishna with a stick, And then Krishna standing in front of her, shivering, and sometimes when the Indians come here, they bring their baby children for the first samskaras. They have like full kajal, and children cry, so they have like this black lines, coming off. So you can imagine Krishna is also described like that. He had this black kajal and these black lines coming, because he was scared, So then Yashoda Mataji threw the stick away, because like, I don't want to traumatize my child, So, yeah, we always have to be, how you say, conscious of the effect of our actions. But yeah, the main point is, if you can use anger consciously, you make a conscious decision. Okay, I'll be heavy now. And that's usually a very clear, you could say, indication. If you can think about doing it, if you just do it without thinking, usually, probably it's out of control. But if you feel this, energy rising, you're like, okay, I'll do it, and I know why, I don't know for how long and how loud, then you might be under control. And then afterwards, you will not feel affected by it, You will not feel affected by it. You will know you did the right thing. So that's a big difference to the situation we had here when it was completely out of control. So then the question is, how is it that a pure devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, he was completely out of control, just slaughtering the yakshas, They had killed his brother, so he was again in revenge mood, And, but it was disproportionate, that was the point. It's a very important point. To be proportionate is very, very important, because that's karma, Karma is proportionate, it's fair, When it's a disproportionate, attack or chastisement or revenge, then it becomes unfair. Then you are again, creating new karmas, that will have to be balanced, in the future. So Dhruva Maharaj was really full rage, and the question is, how do you know that he was still a devotee, basically, because it didn't look like a devotee, like it says here. He was specially requested not to do anything unbefitting a surrendered soul. So Dhruva Manu is emphasizing you should surrender to the Lord, give up your anger, surrender to the Lord. You already did surrender to the Lord, so surrender again, because when you're surrendered, you won't do anything like that. And right now you're doing basically something unbefitting, a pure devotee. So what is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee in such a situation? The difference is very clear, is that Dhruva Maharaj, as soon as he got good advice, he stopped. So he wasn't able to do it by himself, He was so immersed in this rage that he couldn't stop himself. He would have just annihilated the entire Yaksha race, basically, But when Manu and Brahma came, he immediately realized his mistake and he stopped, He was not like, no, I want to keep going, So that would be somebody who's not a surrendered soul, He wouldn't be able to, hear good advice, So that's a very amazing lesson, actually, because by ourselves we might get lost, and strongly deviated. So we should be open for good advice, and we should have enough humility and honesty to take good advice, because good advice can save us, and we should see that actually, of course, reading is very good, but of course, even better having, people talking to you directly. If you're able to take the good advice, it can save you, because if Dhruva Maharaj, who saw Krishna himself, Krishna Garbha, a form of Vishnu, was in such a situation, then we should also, be ready to accept good advice. Okay, I'll stop now. Maybe there are some questions. Yes. Is it muted? Is the red light on? Is it on? Okay, I can repeat the question. Mm-hmm. So the question is, if after you've been angry, you had like an anger episode, then if you're not feeling morose, how do you know if it was right or not right? Yeah, good question. I wouldn't have like a straight answer to that, but like from experience, I would say that the big difference or the main danger of being angry is that you lose your discrimination and your intelligence. So if while you are expressing anger, you're conscious of what you're doing, then it's different. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a purport where it says, somebody with a deep like somebody who has deep ability to discriminate, he is allowed to use anger, something like that. I don't know the exact words, but that's the point, that you're not overcome by the emotion and just led by that emotion. You're using, this emotion that you are feeling because somebody's doing something wrong, and you are consciously using it. It's like a parent. You're screaming and you see the child is still walking towards the abyss. So you increase your voice level. Okay, a little bit louder. Okay, now he heard it. So like that, I would say you have to be, if you are conscious throughout the process, then probably at the end you won't be, affected by it. And there might be, of course, different levels of it. Sometimes it's mixed. You're doing the right thing, but the emotions are too strong, and you become clouded, and you will feel also the other person. Sometimes, of course, an indicator is how the other person reacts. If they, if they can see that you're just, acting out of false ego, or because you've been, not giving enough respect, or you're envious, or so whatever like additional, emotions might be there. Usually somebody who is angry, you can easily read it, read that person. And when somebody is acting erratically or emotionally, I'm sure you have this experience, you feel kind of sorry for that person, because you can kind of see that person in this, like, so then, probably was not a pure, you were not able to actually assert authority or really help somebody. It was probably just some, emotional weakness that, just came through. And then the other person will be like, okay, like probably not take you very seriously, or, reject you or whatever. Why does Brahma have multiple heads? Because he has to think more. There's this very famous story of Krishna giving audience to Brahma. And Brahma is at the door of Dwarka, and he's like, booking a meeting with Krishna. And then the guards are saying, so what's your name? Okay, Brahma. Okay. Chaturmukha Brahma. Okay, 4 faces, Then they go to Krishna. No, it actually says Brahma. He first says just Brahma. So, okay, Brahma. So they go announce Brahma with Krishna, and then they come back. Which Brahma? And it's like, Brahma, like, okay, Chaturmukha Brahma, 4-faced Brahma. Like the head of the universe, me, And then like, okay, Chaturmukha Brahma, so they go in and announce again, and then they come back. Okay, you can come in now, So Brahma comes in, and he pays obeisances, and as he's paying obeisances, he realizes he's not the only Brahma in the room. There are multiple Brahmas, simultaneously, all paying obeisances to the Lord, and their helmets touching the ground, and not one head, not 4 heads, but sometimes 16,000, koti, 10 million heads, Brahmas. Because the description is that we have different universes. In different universes have different complexities as well. So our universe requires a Brahma with 4 heads. 4 main cardinal directions, maybe. That's my speculation. So one face is looking north, south, east, west. He has all under control. But there are other universes where Brahma has like 1 million heads. So we can't even fathom of the complexity of that universe, you know. Who knows how many planets, or, you know, how people look like, or snakes with I don't know how many heads, or all kind of creatures that might be there, you know. So like that, yeah. It's just it reflects the complexity of the universe. Not so complex. There are bigger ones. Yes. The mic is working now.
Hare Krishna. So in the beginning you mentioned something about putting some effort in devotional service or in taking shelter of Lord Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we as devotees, I think we all experience some tiredness, like you feel you're not very motivated or you're really tired. So my question is how to first like keep this motivation going somehow, and how to differentiate between being kind of depressed or overwhelmed, or you're reached to burnout, or you're just tired and you need like spiritual break or like real break. So how can we be conscious about both?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Well, technically speaking, we don't need a spiritual break. So, because a spiritual break is not a good idea. And this is, once I was traveling when I was a brahmachari in the train from Passau to Berlin, and went in the compartment, and there was a Catholic priest, you know. And he was also very young. He was maybe mid-20s. And he told me his story. He always knew he wanted to be a priest, you know. And nobody believed him, you know. He even had a girlfriend when he was like 15, 16. And everybody's like, you're not going to be a priest. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a priest, you know. So sure enough, he became 18. He became a priest, you know. He joined the monastery and became a full Catholic priest. And unfortunately, the main duty he had to do, because Christianity is in decline, of course, in the West especially, his main duty was to travel around Europe and look for, like, there were many old monasteries where there were only like 3 nuns of this specific Catholic nun order, and they were all between 83 and 90, you know. So he had to go there, you know, arrange all their traveling, and, you know, dissolve the property, sell it, and bring the nuns to a different monastery, you know. So that was his whole, he was always traveling around Europe, managing monasteries, you know. And he was like, this is so depressing, you know. It's like not like expansion or preaching or, you know, opening new temples. It's like just closing monasteries and moving old nuns and monks, you know, around Europe. And so because he was not spiritually fulfilled, he said, I need a spiritual break sometimes, you know. So sometimes I put normal clothes and I go to the disco, you know. You know, to feed the soul, he was saying, you know. But basically he was not happy. And you need to get some happiness, you know, from somewhere. And yeah, if you don't get happiness from Krishna, you will get happiness from something else, you know. He needed to get happiness from something. He was young, you know, mid-20s, you know. He was very idealistic in the beginning. He thought he's going to be a monk. I don't know. He's going to, you know, maybe go to Africa and, you know, convert a tribe, uncontacted tribe or something. I don't know. But so a spiritual, we confuse exhaustion with, I would say a different way. When we are exhausted, it's not because we are being too spiritually active. You know, it's usually because we might have crossed, a border of our abilities. You know, you have a certain ability, and we have to, act according to our abilities. So if you go beyond your abilities, it will not be, fulfilling. But another way Krishna is putting in the Bhagavad Gita, he's saying that if it's not your duty, but you might still be able to do it more or less good, you should still not do it, not long term at least, So that can also be a situation where you are like, yeah, I kind of can do it, but actually I'm not really good at it, or it's not really my actual duty, but I am doing it because nobody else is there. So at one point there will be the point where you will feel exhausted, but it's not spiritual. So that's what I'm trying to make the point, is that to take a spiritual break is not a good idea. Yeah, so yeah, but that's not the spiritual, it's not a spiritual break, because the spirituality is who we really are. So we shouldn't take a break from that. We should see what we're doing wrong, Like Ravindra Sarup Prabhu always makes this point that when something is not working, in our spiritual life, or we have some, like you feel maybe exhausted, not inspired anymore, or not motivated enough anymore, then it's not that some people think, oh, the process is not working, maybe. Like, no, we just need to readjust something we're doing wrong, It's because it's like, if it's scientific, and Prabhupada again and again says it's scientific, And the reason why it's scientific is because there is a process to it, And if you follow the process properly, and because an experiment is scientific if you can reproduce it again and again, And you need to have the right temperature, the right ingredients, and the right amounts, and then the experiment will work. So it's the same with spiritual life. We need to have the right atmosphere, the right circumstances, the right ingredients, the right association, and then it will work. So we should not doubt the process. We should just what you said is correct. We should regularly reevaluate. Or reevaluate. And a very good book, of course, in this connection is the Madhurya Kadambini from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which describes the growing of the Bhakti Lata. Because we have, the spiritual life is, the analogy is given that we have a creeper, Our spiritual life is like a plant, And it starts growing, and as it starts growing, first it manifests two main leaves. On one side is rough, and one side is soft, like in plants in the garden also. And so this one part is showing the benefits of starting devotional life. The others are the rough side are the difficulties we will encounter, as we progress. And it's very detailed. Madhurya Kadambini. You can, reflect about every aspect, every step of devotional service, and it's related also to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, the processes, but also the steps, like Shraddha, Bhajana Kriya, Sadhusanga, Anartha Nivriti. So this plant is growing and crossing these different levels, and at each level there are certain, aspects that become manifest. It means like good qualities that you manifest, and benefits, you might feel relief, you might feel happy, you might feel, some emotion. But also there are different aspects that become, negative aspects that become prominent. You need to deal with, the more you progress, for example, one thing that can easily creep in is pride, because along the plant of bhakti also grow all the anarthas. So if you don't keep your garden clean, then the plant can be suffocated, So then you have the small creeper, and there's too many, other, weeds growing around it. They can be very overwhelming, at times. So yeah, if we keep the garden clean and we're conscious about, which part we are in, it's very, very important to be honest in spiritual life. Sometimes we have the tendency, and there's many times a warning in the Bhagavatam, to not think we are vimuktamaninas. So vimuktamaninas means in our mind and our conception and perception of ourselves, we are liberated, or we're very advanced, or more advanced than we actually are. All of that is vimuktamaninas. But if you really look at yourself, you're like, well, actually, So that's very helpful to reflect, and see where you really are. Be completely honest, I would like to have a car, or I would like to have a TV, or I'm still missing meat, maybe, or most people don't, but or gambling, or whatever, You have to be very honest where you are, and you need to start right there, because the more we have, it can easily happen that we have externally we are devotees, And internally, we're still fighting big monsters, you know, strong desires, you know. So, yeah, we have to be honest, you know, honest with yourself. And if you have a mentor, a senior devotee, or a guru you can trust, it's good to reveal also. And yeah, be honest. Nobody is a pure devotee straight away. You know, we are growing, and when you're honest, you feel secure. You know? If you're not honest, you always are actually in fear of being detected, who you really are. Yes. No, it's too late. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.